would do. Are we started now? All right. Welcome, everybody. We're going to go ahead and do introductions for the SCTA Citizens Advisory Committee. We'll start over here with Jake. Sure.
Jake McKenzie, representing the Transportation and Land Use Committee.
Dennis Harder, representing Sonoma County Alliance.
Tom Conlon, representing the Sonoma County Conservation Comrades.
Eris Weaver, Executive Director of the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition.
CB Wall, representing the Sonoma County Area Agency on Aging on behalf of my colleague Kathleen Cortez.
Tim Zahner, representing District 1 with the Sonoma Valley Visitors Bureau.
Steve Bertelbaugh, representing the Sierra Club.
Musa Abbasi, representing the Santa Rosa Metro Chamber.
I'm John Bly, representing the Engineering Contractors Association and chair of this august committee. We'll go up to the screen first, and I know that you guys are participating but not voting, so you're not going to miss much today. Just don't get to vote on the minutes. But Rick, I'm going to count on you to do some correction of the minutes. So why don't we introduce? Why don't we start up there, and Rick, you start with introductions. Who are you, and who do you represent?
Rick Lutman, I'm representing the League of Women Voters. And as you say, I'm observing today, but I'm not officially there.
That's all right.
I haven't read the minutes.
Good. Okay, thank you. Next, whoever would like to go.
I'll go. I'm Janice Cater Thompson. I thought I was participating in this meeting and I thought it was a Zoom, so that's why I'm home, not there. Should I just get in my car and drive to Santa Rosa?
Well, the only thing you can't do is vote. And so if the minutes are that important to you, hop on down here. Otherwise, we'll relish your comments and thank you for your participation. Good to see you again.
Thanks.
You bet. I think
Sonoma County Transportation Authority meeting.
Adam Garcia, SCTAR CPA.
Okay.
River, SCTA, RCPA.
Okay. And I don't remember her name. Erin? Gina, you're muted, I think. Unmute yourself, Gina. You have to unmute your microphone. Okay, I hope you can, I think she can hear us, but we can't hear you. So let's go to the back of the room. Hi, everybody. Go ahead. Start, Chris.
Margo, same Margo.
Okay.
And Tanya there.
Okay.
Oh, gosh. I'm just right there.
Right. The Wizard of Oz over there. Pulling all the strings. All right. Thank you for the introductions. Do we have any public comments on items not on the regular agenda? I'll go to the screen first. You guys got any public comments up there? Nope, seeing none. No public comments. What's that? Okay. And seeing none here, we'll go to administrative items if we have a quorum. If we don't have a quorum, we'll bypass the minutes until somebody else shows up. Are we still one shy? I think we're still one shy.
Yeah. Pretty sure.
Okay, let's move on to
We need to designate this as a committee of the whole.
okay. And we want to change the agenda, and Margo, I think you got a hard stop. I don't know why I'm looking up there. Margo, you got a hard stop, right? Okay, so we're going to move you to numero uno. So you are up. So Margo is going to go over the Go Sonoma project presentation. So on your agenda, just please note that we're moving Margo up ahead of Chris because she's got a hard stop. Chris, you okay with that? You look pretty upset. You'll get over it, huh? Okay, good. Here we go. All right. It's there.
Apologies, as the new staffer, I wasn't quite sure where to deliver accordingly.
Oh, okay.
guess I'll run out of that excuse. I think we're just short of 2 months.
That's all right. Has anybody got any good traffic jokes to fill? No.
So do we have a quorum now?
I think we just got a quorum with,
We're still one.
We're lacking one.
Yeah,
we are even,
Yeah.
Huh.
What are our quorum rules? We should make a motion to
What's the quorum?
amend the quorum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need 11 people, that is adjusting for long-term vacancies.
yeah, we got 10. Okay. Right.
Hey, fabulous. So, lovely to be able to have the opportunity to address you today. I'm gonna stand back a little bit so I can.
So actually, I do need you.
Oh, do you need me at the mic?
I don't think they can hear you if you're not at the
Oh,
mic. You can,
Yeah, you can pick up the mic.
Can I do that?
yeah, the mic could be remote.
look at that.
There you go.
Ooh,
It's like American Idol. Let's go.
that's right. Boy, I feel like I belong on a television show. Excellent. Okay, so my objective today is to give you an oversight on some projects that are in the process of kicking off their implementation, as well as those that are in development for a funding application. So that is a hefty title there, but the funding opportunity that we're zeroing in on is the Safe Streets for All. Relatively new program, but quite a bit of money coming out of Washington, so we're eager to take advantage of it. So I'm going to walk you through. Next slide, please. I am going to walk you through the first application that was in fact awarded prior to my arrival. I did arrive with SCTA on May 28th, right after Memorial Day. And at that time, SCTA had been fortunate enough to secure funding for a fiscal year 24 application, totaling close to $1.3 million. Again, a multi-jurisdictional approach, but again, the objective was really to address the Vision Zero action plan. So there are 6 components of that, which you can read on the screen here. And to the next slide, please. Thank you. There are several components to it. The largest, oh, great. And what do I push? The forward arrow. Okay, perfect. The largest component by all is a Safe Routes to School project. There will be both a county-wide Safe Routes to School plan developed, but we'll start initially with updating the Safe Routes to School plan for the city of Healdsburg. So there'll be some good learnings happening at the local jurisdiction level that we will then try to scale and work across the county. There's also been some great work in Petaluma. Safe Routes to School, again, with a bicycle coalition, has done really great work in establishing task force and really solidifying some solid community planning approaches that we want to find a way to formalize and scale more effectively. So following the sort of 700,000, again, out of that 1.3 for Safe Routes to School, we also have in the city of Petaluma, a Lakeville corridor multimodal study. Secondly, followed by both at the city of Healdsburg and then at the county level, a speed limit reduction engineering and traffic studies analysis. Again, these are all things, as I mentioned, that will start in the city of Healdsburg and then expand countywide. Yes.
A question. Why have you decided to do it for Healdsburg? Was it a competitive, bidding between the cities or?
Right, and I'll have Chris feel free to chime in. My understanding is that when the NOFO comes out, so the notice of a funding opportunities for these is issued, we, as the sort of coalescing body, will reach out to the jurisdictions and ask them, based on the criteria, meaning these are the types of projects based on evaluations that we think will be successful, do you have recommendations of projects that you would like to bring forward? So we solicit that input from all the various jurisdictions, and then there's a process internally that, again, if you'd like to speak to it, but I think internally there's an assessment, seeing that this is competitive, which of those jurisdictional suggestions do we feel put together would set us most competitively ahead of everybody else?
Thank you.
It's a very sort of generic response, but yes.
I don't want to get you off track on your spiel, but did
Sure.
all of the jurisdictions respond?
Sorry,
Oh,
this
I'm
was-
sorry, we can
Here you go,
cover it
Chris.
later. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, just so everyone can hear on Zoom. So we opened the initial call for this last year to all jurisdictions, and just based on what they had ready to go, that's what we included in that first round. So Healdsburg, had an older safe routes to school plan that they wanted to update, and also were interested in the traffic speeds survey for the town or the city of Healdsburg as well, that they could use to reduce speed limits. So it was open to everyone, but not everyone had anything ready to go. So Margot will get to it. I don't want to spoil the rest of the presentation, but there are further rounds coming.
My apologies for getting out of there. All right.
And it's quite a punchline, so I hope you're all excited. So with regard to this project, again, I'm really stepping in at a time where we're focusing on the implementation. So thank you, Chris, for a little bit of background on how we got to implementation. So we were awarded and we released a request for proposal to our bench of pre-qualified prime consultants earlier this summer, and we are expecting proposals on the 16th of September. And we did follow up with each of these consultants and asked them to think deeply about the scope and think creatively about not only the proposal, about not only writing a proposal that would be strictly to their strengths, but really take the intent of this overall project to heart and think broadly about other types of community-based organizations or other partners who they could bundle into their proposal to really ensure that we are very successful in coming to implementation of these projects. So we hope to have the evaluation and a contractor selected by the November timeframe, I believe, and then launch the project at that time. And it is a 3-year project. So we anticipate finishing in the summer of 2027. So, great. And a little bit of an infomercial for Go Sonoma. So I've just finished talking about the fiscal year 23 Safe Streets for All, and I'm going to shift into the fiscal year 24 Safe Streets for All, which we're in the process of completing an application. But did want to give a shout out to Go Sonoma, which, as you may remember, there's a component of that funding that is directed towards capacity building. So our ability within SCTA to dedicate the time to be more intentional and more deliberate and focused on these really great funding opportunities that are coming down the pipeline. This funding allows me, for example, to spend my time working collaboratively with the jurisdictions and really ensuring that we're putting together as hopefully a compelling application as possible. So unless there's anything else you'd like, perfect. Okay. So let's go to the one that's underway right now. When I arrived at the end of May, at that time, Chris and his team had in fact solicited input from jurisdictions as to a scope of work that they would like to put forward for this August application. So upon my arrival, recognizing that the application was going to be focused on demonstration activities and supplemental planning, I reviewed what they had submitted and started my conversations with them. At that time, the total for those projects was coming in at about 2 million. Through getting to sort of know people on the ground, which was a great opportunity for me, and actually going out and visiting with all the many sites that they have proposed, we really bolstered up the scope on demonstration activities in the 5 cities of Cotati, Petaluma, Santa Rosa, Windsor, and Rohnert Park. So this, and I will get into the details of the scope around that application in a moment, but the timing is such that the application is due on Thursday. We expect to be awarded, and that would happen in the latter part of this year, with the goal of launching the project in late spring of next year and finish the project within 3 years. I'll reinforce that this is again called a demonstration activity heavy application. Demonstration activities can also be tagged as quick build or near term or low cost. The idea is that these are not projects that include concrete. There is not civil work that is done because civil work generally involves drains and concrete, et cetera. The scope of these projects is to put low-cost materials into the ground as efficiently and effectively, sort of expediently as possible, so that we can test whether that treatment, sort of its genre, is effective in helping to improve the safety or slow or calm traffic more quickly than waiting for these large permanent projects to be built. So there are kind of three phases of steps that we will be going through as part of the project, but I'll start with the demonstration toolkit. The reason being is that upon seeing the scopes from the 5 cities that I just mentioned, I really came to understand that our 5 cities have varying degrees of experience in doing quick builds. They also use very different types of materials. For example, if you're going to build a curb extension, the way it's done in one city is done differently in another city. The variety is fine, but there was also an opportunity in preparation for this application to bring all the cities together, and we workshopped how each of the cities are currently doing some of these demonstration elements, what's working, what's not working from a vendor, a costing, the field crews, like where are the issues, and also helping us to maybe settle on some designs that are stronger than others. So it was really a first step in June of bringing us together in person. So it was good sort of connecting us personally, but starting a conversation around what is the menu of quick build type treatments, who's kind of the expert in a design, who's made advances in developing standard plans or policies, is anybody have insights on vendors that worked or didn't work, et cetera. So we've done sort of a down payment on a future quick build toolkit and a set of processes that we hope to perfect through this project and ultimately end up with a toolkit of these commonalities so that we may not necessarily have to wait for future funding opportunities because these are low cost, but we sort of get a set of experts up and running in the county on quick builds so that we can share those with the other cities who have not participated or just scale it within the limits of the cities that we have been working with. So as a part of this toolkit or process, we start with how can we streamline some of the concept plans or engineering plans? Again, each city has a different set of engineers, et cetera, but perhaps there's opportunity to streamline how we concept them to share with the public and also the engineering plans. How do we streamline procurement, maybe find select vendors that are particularly good, who we've had a good working relationship with. We also would like to do community engagement before the quick build elements go in, specifically doing some tactical urbanism pop-up events, or tactical urbanism and or pop-up events. They can be a little labor intensive, but again, if we as combined cities think about how to do them, we may be able to scale them. Obviously, there's installation. What have we learned? What are the field crews struggling with? What have they not struggled with? What learnings can we take from that? And then ultimately, and very importantly, is evaluation. What are the metrics that we're using pre-project install versus post-project install? Has it worked? Has it been successful? Has it generated the benefits we've looked at? Is sort of the cost benefit ratio work out for these types of treatments? So this will be really important, again, across this sort of life cycle of doing demonstration events. So as I was mentioning, there are different ways of building the same treatment. So this would be on my far left is probably the most simplistic. You're sort of putting a few elements together. Middle pictures, a little bit basic, but with some color. And then ultimately to the far right is a modular unit. And in fact, we are going to test all 3 of these types, not specifically to look like this, but we're going to implement, assuming we're awarded, kind of these ranges of quick build traffic circles, and then we will be able to evaluate them. And that will help us solidify and tighten up that toolkit that will then be our sort of scaling instrument. As I mentioned, one of the community engagement activities that a lot of the cities were excited about was something called urban tacticalism. This is a type of event day where you're bringing out super low cost, super near term, like 1 day materials, hay bales, perhaps some painted surfaces, cones, things that are very movable, to painted tires, etc. But the whole goal is that you develop an immersive experience for your community in advance of the quick build going in. Excuse me. And in this way, it's a great evaluation opportunity. I also like to treat it as an engineering laboratory. We did quite a few of these with my previous team in Los Angeles, and we invited sort of 30 to 40 engineers out to the site. Sometimes they get a little nervous when they see it on paper, but if you pop it up for the day and you go, would you want to move the hay bale here? Would you like to tighten this diversion? Would you like to move this cone? Sort of allow them that opportunity to see it in action before it is installed as quick build. It also helps to garner support, and it seems to be an event that's a lot more robust in its reach, as opposed to, say, flyer distribution, et cetera, because when you're right there in front of somebody's doorstep and they kind of have to move through it, it's a way of presenting the project. And then lastly, wanted to share a couple of the scopes of the demonstration projects that are going into the application. What I'm showing here was a sort of almost too much detail, but this was a way that we broke down a corridor. This was our approach to breaking down corridors across all 5 jurisdictions. So this is in the city of Petaluma. This is Payran. And we literally went block by block and looked at all the opportunities or not opportunities for thinking about where a demonstration element might work. So again, it was a very kind of new but collaborative approach. I went big and kind of put in a lot of recommendations, and then Petaluma, they're the ones that know their context back. They either pulled out of some of them or they modified them. But at the end of the day, the scope that we ended up for Petaluma was much more robust than what they had initially proposed in March. Particularly because this is a multi-jurisdictional application. I felt it was really important that we go for some larger dollars. And we have a very good story to tell, which is we have 5 neighboring urban areas, which account for about 75% of the county's fatal crashes. So we do need these treatments. I think it was just a matter of bulking up our scope to let people know we're serious. So, and this is a representation, many thanks to Adam for his assistance on the corridor map. So each of the cities, we've highlighted the corridors are getting treated. Cumulatively across the 5 project areas, we will be affecting improvements on over 56 miles of streets and more than 50 corridors. And we had some help from our consultant, Mark Thomas, for developing a concept plan for one of those corridors in Petaluma. For those of you that might be from Windsor, this is sort of, I had mentioned before, there's quick builds that are sort of delineators and some striping, or there are modular units. We're excited about the Windsor scope because the majority of their improvements are going to use modular components. So on Foothill Drive, running between Hembry and Brooks, which is a primary corridor to several schools, 2 parks, and through a residential neighborhood. We are doing a whole series of tightening up intersections with curb extensions. We're doing modular roundabouts. We are doing some sharrows and tightening up of the vehicle lane width with some edge lines, really to redefine the context of that street, which is heavily populated, obviously, with vulnerable youth. And then the other part of the Windsor project is Windsor Road, also a primary route into the high school. It's also where the city and the county intersect, where the roundabout is. So it really is, it's a gateway that will force, initially people will have to slow at the roundabout, and then we're tightening up the movement through the corridor up to the school by bolstering the bicycle lanes to parking protected class 4 lanes. So exciting scopes. And the 5 cities, again, have been very collaborative. And I think we've started a sort of a great process that we only hope to build on as we consider more funding opportunities. So that's a lot of details, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, how'd you do that with no notes? That's very good.
That's just the kind of girl I am.
There you go.
So, yes, yes.
So I'm not sure how much of this is a question or a comment or the both of them wrapped up together. So my colleagues at Bike East Bay and Alta Planning have done a lot of these in various places
Yes.
around the East Bay, and having done taken a class from them, we got a small grant to get materials to do a pop-up, and we were working with a group of activists in Petaluma around doing a pop-up in front of a school for Bike to
A
Work Day.
one day event.
A one
correct?
day.
Right.
The city loved it, the school loved it, everybody around loved it, and the city ended up, the people that give permits killed it. They would not give us an encroachment permit to do it.
To be able
So
to host
to
the
do
event.
the event, yeah, to host the
Okay.
event, to put
Okay.
down the temporary materials, which I have sitting in a room in my office.
We call that the kit of parts.
Yeah,
The kit of
yeah,
parts.
yeah.
You have a pop-up kit of parts.
But yeah, so I have some of those parts, but
Okay.
so I'm interested, so I guess it's interesting to me to see it coming from the cities when the cities kind of rejected it. When it was coming.
Well, it's
us.
interesting. Petaluma's been part of the conversations. They have not pushed back. I've not been asked to remove it from the scope.
Mhm.
I am, in all transparency, I have dealt mostly with some engineers and some planners at the city level. I haven't been in the trenches yet. I can only reference that there may be ways to use the approach that I've used with my previous city, which is if there's special events permits, we pulled those in the past. The other thing that gave our engineers comfort in the city of Los Angeles is that, and I've built this into the budget for pop-up events, is that I have the engineers of the city and or the consultants, perhaps in this case, develop engineering plans for a pop-up event. Because in that way, I'm talking their language and we're addressing those in advance and saying, look, a pop-up in many ways is a dress rehearsal for the quick build plan. So I'm going to present you, Mr. Engineer, a site plan that's highly simplistic, but heading in the direction of what the quick build is going to look like. And I will also provide you a traffic control plan. Because I think a lot of times there's concerns about, well, there are concerns, but I think also part of it is this whole concept of people playing below the curb, and there are people out there and they're setting these things up, et cetera. So having a approved traffic control plan also seemed to put them at ease. And if you're very deliberate about saying you need to be present and participating in this event. So before you say no, can you sign off on these documents and can you participate? And we always have, at least again, in previous experience, we also had our traffic control officers on site so that if there was a need to amend a material or a measure or the shape of a treatment, that you had your, at that point, it was LADOT's traffic officers, and we just had them on call and they could, quickly shut a street and we would do an adjustment. I'm not sure if it's foolproof, but those are some of the elements that can increasingly put not so used to this type of approach into a little bit more comfort. So,
Tom?
Brilliant. I looked at the list of the communities who've approved Vision Zero action plans, and City of Sonoma is the only one in the county that has yet to do so. So I'm just curious, is a Vision Zero action plan a prerequisite for either this funding or other funding streams that you're aware of?
we, in crafting the narrative for this and making the compelling, in crafting the compelling story, we talk about how evaluating these demonstration element, or putting in and then evaluating these demonstration activities are a down payment on future community supported projects that even over the phased approach from quick build to permanent can help achieve the Vision Zero goals. There's a combination of Vision Zero being a framing for this narrative, as well as each of the locals. Thank you. I'm still learning the alphabet soup.
My question is frankly very administrative.
Yeah.
Just, are we gonna not be able to move to the next gateway or gate if we don't get that Vision Heroes plan formally drafted and filed? Or are we gonna continue to be able to use our old local road safety plan?
So, I'll get close to the mic. So in general, a Vision Zero action plan is preferred, but jurisdictions can fall back on a local road safety plan if they can make the case for specific projects for this funding program.
Good to
So-
know, because we are making progress. I've just let everybody know at the city level, we are starting to make progress where you're using the Vision Zero overlay in some of our local decision making. So I just want to be sure we're not like, because we didn't file a plan, we're gonna lose out on the next round of funding. Which
Yeah, there's
this
a-
time they didn't apply because they simply didn't have the bandwidth to apply.
For the grant application, there's a whole, checklist that you go through about adoption of different policies. And if you can make the case between your adopted documents and those policies, then.
Yeah, and I would say, thank you, Chris. All of the cities in their LRSPs have corridors that ultimately are also manifest in this demonstration activity scope.
Then you mentioned metrics too. Is there any like priority metrics you're confident are going to be required or?
That's a great question. So what we've done to date, and we're reflecting this in the application as well. We have developed a long set of metrics at this point, and we're in conversation with consultants who, and we've identified what we think would be the type of data and how to collect that data. We're working with a consulting firm to sort of do a reality check on that. The challenge is that between the pre-install and the post-install, which is 3 years, that's just the way that that data on crashes collected can be a little bit challenging. So we're going to look for some additional metrics. Our hope is that we will be collecting that data in the fall, although we will not hear about the application until November. It never hurts. These cities want to make improvements on these corridors regardless of whether we get the application. So we're collecting the data this fall because, again, according to national standards, September and October are sort of spotlighted as the best times of year to collect data. And that will allow us to then do almost exactly 3 years later in the fall of 2027, just a couple months after the projects have been installed, to do a bit more data or to collect the post-install data. So we're looking at things like speeds, volumes of all the different modes, perhaps compliance to crosswalks, compliance, like what is compliant use at roundabouts or traffic circles. Again, there's probably a bit of a learning curve around some roundabouts, et cetera. So, and sort of perceived safety by pedestrians, et cetera. So we're noodling through that now. So that's almost a little bit behind us, and we can focus on getting the projects installed as quickly as possible. FHWA truly would like the demonstration components to go from start to finish in 18 months. So if we continue doing the work and collecting the data now in the fall, as well as continuing to have monthly convenings of the cities and pushing forward that quick build toolkit, there isn't any reason we shouldn't be doing this just because we want to get an application accepted. We should be doing this anyway. So it's really foundational steps that we're doing on the policies and plans for quick builds, regardless of the application. It also helps to tell a good story. So
Thank you.
sure.
Excellent. Anybody else? Seeing none, thank you for your report. That was well done.
Thank you.
Chris, thanks for
Thank you for rearranging the
supporting
schedule.
there too.
Yes.
I didn't see a hand raised. Rick's the only one up there now. You
Oh.
got a comment, Rick? Okay. We can go to Mr. Barney.
Yeah.
You want to do your transportation plan?
Sit down.
Okay.
Need to drive the presentation. There you go. Oh, I've got it. Let me go ahead and. Good afternoon, everyone. It's exciting to see, some of these items in a plan move closer towards implementation. So thank you, Margot, for that presentation. Let me share this.
While you're getting going, I just wanted to have Carol introduce herself. We do have a quorum now. Carol, would you just let everybody know who you are? So,
Sure.
thank you.
My name is Carol Taylor. I'm representing the North Bay Organizing Project. And I'm late because somebody hit my fender, and so I'm still a little jittery. But thank you.
Yeah, hope it's finer. Thank you.
But glad I count.
Glad you're doing okay.
We'll go back to the minutes and do the minutes.
Oh, yeah. do you-
We'll do them after your
After,
report.
great. Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Barney. Happy to be here today to talk about two new community-based transportation plans that we're going to be working on over the next 18 months or so. So we're going to be focusing in two areas: South Santa Rosa Avenue, the area roughly between Highway 12 down to the northern section of Roanoke Park city limits, and also central Roanoke Park. So I'll be talking a little bit about the community. Right back here. Maybe I can do like this for them. So the community-based transportation plan is a regional program that the Metropolitan Transportation Commission developed to really improve access for underserved and lower income communities across the region. It's focused geographically on something they call equity priority communities, which have been known as communities of concern in the past. So MDC basically takes census data and other data sources to identify areas with lower income, in areas that have been systematically disadvantaged when you're considering transportation and emissions over the long term. And the idea here is to line up funding to improve transportation conditions in these communities. And so there are a few different ways of doing that. And the first is to actually get out in the community and identify issues that people are experiencing in the community. Down to a really small level, right? Like where are local safety issues, where are crossing problems, up to bigger issues as well. So what are regional connections that are maybe missing, and getting those all identified and on a list, and then working with the same group of people to identify solutions, right? Like where's a crossing that we need improved right now? What is, maybe we need a bus stop here. There may be a bus stop and, there could be a shelter or a bench there for people waiting for the bus. So large and small improvements. So, there's a lot that could be identified, collaborating with those groups out in the community. And so the end goal is coming up with a list of projects that could be funded to improve conditions in these areas. So here's a look at equity priority communities in Sonoma County and the North Bay. So you can see these purple areas are those areas. The Russian River area has been identified, a good portion of central Santa Rosa and Roanoke Park. Also the Springs area out in the Sonoma Valley. So we've actually developed a number of these community-based transportation plans for these diverse areas in the county in the past. So we developed one in Roseland, the Roseland area of Santa Rosa back in 2007. We looked at the Russian River area, Guerneville and Monterey in 2009. The Sonoma Valley Springs area in 2010, and also Central Healdsburg a number of years ago. So these are relatively dated at this point, but there are still outstanding issues that we identified as part of these plans that could still be implemented. So this map shows the location of those past CBTPs. Those are the blue squares. But there are a few areas that we haven't looked at already. So those include the Santa Rosa Avenue corridor in southern Santa Rosa and central Roanoke Park. So these are newer equity priority communities that haven't been examined or studied in the past. So one other thing we did as part of our last comprehensive transportation plan is we looked community-wide at the entire county and looked at needs in diverse locations across the county. So we recognize that Equity issues and transportation needs aren't just focused at the geographic level. There are people that are struggling all over the county, right? So we cast that countywide net to identify, different solutions and needs across the county. So we've included that in our last CGP. And Dana was also able to go through those old community-based transportation plans, go through the lists of projects that were identified by the community groups then, and see how much progress we've made. So we have made a decent amount of progress in a lot of those areas. There's still outstanding needs that haven't been implemented yet in those areas, and that's included as an appendix in our last comprehensive transportation plan.
Chris?
Yeah.
What's the timing and who actually did the CVTP designation? So you get your criteria, and so forth.
Yeah.
Who actually goes through that criteria and then says, okay, these are the new areas? I'm just noticing that we haven't done one since 2010.
Yeah.
So is this something that is 14 years old, this information? Or is it something that got done in 2024? Is it latest and greatest?
There are different funding opportunities that come from the region. So we had a series of money coming from MTC back in 2007, 2011 that allowed us to do that first batch of community-based transportation plans. We had another infusion of money in 2018, I believe, that let us do that kind of countywide look at needs. And then last year, we received another amount of money to look at new areas. So we basically looked at the map and looked at where we looked at in the past and looked at areas that had identified needs that we haven't examined yet. So we worked with the city of Santa Rosa and Rohnert Park to make sure that they were open to looking at those areas with us. And we also looked at the timing of other planning activities as well. The city of Rohnert Park's just wrapping up their general plan. So they have a lot of work going on in that central area right now, including, developing the area around the smart station. So there are a lot of opportunities and, there's a lot of energy around that area to look at that specific location. And there's a lot of need in the South Santa Rosa Avenue area, and they're actually working on a specific plan in that area right now as well. So just the timing lined up really well with those other planning activities, and there are areas we haven't looked at in the past. So with the funding, we line those up, and that's how we identify these areas.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
I kind of want to re-ask a portion of his question, which was, how did you, I'm looking at the map that has the orange current existing or equity priority communities on it.
Yeah.
And the geographic size of them is quite different.
Yeah.
Is there a report that talks about the decision-making, the criteria, and then how many people are in each one of these?
Yeah, they're all based on census tracts, so they're pretty big, right? Especially if you get out into the rural areas. But MTC has a lot of documentation on the criteria they use.
Okay.
I believe there are 10 different data points that feed into that. So I'd be happy to get that out to everyone. I think it might be linked in the staff report, but if not,
Thank you.
I'll make sure we get that.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
So these are the types of projects that we've typically identified as part of these plans. Transit routes and stops, improved transit headways, bicycle and pedestrian improvements, sidewalk connections, crossing, improved traveler information and safety improvements, right? And so, as I mentioned before, both really detailed, localized improvements, but larger improvements as well. So here's a look at,
Chris, I wrote myself a note on this one. I saw the improved headways.
Yeah.
One of the things that bothered me is our headways are atrocious.
Yeah.
It's the 90 minutes, whatever.
Yes.
And I was studying a bunch of the other transit agencies in the other counties, and I find a number of them have started launching either as pilots or permanent on-demand transit. Is that something that we can look at as part of this?
Yeah, definitely. If it's appropriate for a certain area, that would be a great addition to this.
Yeah, I'd like to find out whether it's cost effective to do those things, because certainly the thing that keeps people from going on transit is convenience. That would address that.
So one thing we really want to focus on though is what that community wants, right? What they think, what everyone there feels would be useful for, how they're getting around the area and their daily trips. So if it pops up, we definitely like to explore that.
So I know I always sound like a broken record when I'm saying about how we spent half the money we spend on more plans and more studies on the actual building shit. Things would be a lot better. So what does this add to all of that we're not getting in all these other studies? Everybody just did all their local road safety plans. Everybody's working on their active transportation plans. Several of the cities are finishing up redoing their general plans. And shouldn't outreach to these communities have been a part of all of those plans? So like why? What is this gonna be doing any different or better, or that shouldn't have happened already?
So, I think two things. One is there's specific funding that's lined up with these plans. So if there are projects that are coming out of these plans, MTC has, different funding streams attached to that specifically. So in the past, the Lifeline Transportation Plan or funding was tied to this type of planning effort. And they have a new program that they're calling CARES that's specifically focused on these project lists and projects identified in the community. So that's one piece. And a lot of times these areas get overlooked, right? Like if you're looking at a community-wide plan in Santa Rosa or Roanoke Park, there are certain people that show up to the general plan outreach meeting, right?
The usual suspect.
Yeah.
Right. So the intent of this planning effort is to get out into the community and reach groups that maybe won't show up at a general plan outreach meeting or engagement meeting, won't answer the survey, set up a table at the market and get feedback that way. Reach out to different faith-based organizations or, PTA groups, things like that. So try and reach people that haven't been reached through those other efforts. So, but yeah, I understand the frustration, right? We want to see stuff happen. But we're trying to identify needs that people maybe haven't been able to communicate to us directly.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think Mr. McKenzie had a comment or question.
Gotta get my eyes working.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night at the Roanoke Park City Council, the city council is going to make a decision on which developer is going to develop, quote unquote, downtown Roanoke Park, the 30-acre former State Farm site. And I was just noticing on the I guess it's the census tract maps that are shown in the presentation. Central Roanoke Park centered along Roanoke Park Expressway and State Farm Drive. That's exactly where downtown Roanoke Park is. The developer selected, and the name has been is now available in the staff report for tomorrow night, is going to be responsible for the financing and the development of that city-owned land. And I'm just curious, you can't have had any conversations with them yet because they haven't been selected. They're about to be selected, and they're going to be, clearly drivers and what happens around downtown Roanoke Park. And one of the concerns that citizens have raised is, what is the impact of actually having 500 housing units, retail, hotel, as part of this new development. How is that activity going to work in terms of what's been projected? Is it the intention to overlay what's going on with downtown Roanoke Park with a community-based process on top of the general plan update process, which frankly has been virtually invisible for the last 4 years? I have some strong feelings on this matter, but you don't have to worry about that. It's just the truth of the matter is that I would guess that most of the citizens of Runner Park are not aware that the Constitution for growth of Runner Park is about to be unveiled. I just, have you had any, or what involvement have you had with the city of Runner Park?
We've been coordinating with city staff on that, and they did really want to hold off until they were closer to that developer agreement before we kicked this off, because they do want to coordinate what's going on there with this effort. I would say we're going to be having bi-monthly check-ins with city staff in the city of Runner Park on what's going on. So there'll be a lot of opportunities to make sure that we're syncing up with that activity. And we're also going to be having a separate stakeholder group that'll be made up of, potentially that developer and community representatives on, needs in the area as well. So, I think there'll be opportunities to engage really closely with staff, but also with other parties as well.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm planning to speak in front of the council tomorrow night on this matter with which I've had a lot of involvement over the first time it was even mentioned, 1997 at a community summit. So we're at an interesting juncture now in Runner Park on this central Runner Park activity.
Time for me to Runner Park City Council.
Anyway, thanks, Chris.
You're very welcome. Mr. Chair.
So where does Vision Zero come into all of this?
So Vision Zero is woven through all of this, right? Like safety is such an important topic. Through all of our planning activities, it's one of our major goals in our comprehensive transportation plan and for the agency. So I'm expecting safety to be coming up a lot at these engagement meetings and, pop-up events we have. So we can definitely lean on the work we did as part of the Vision Zero action plan, doing that. Once we identify some of the needs in some of these projects, it could feed directly into some of that Safe Streets for All funding. There are 2 more cycles of funding. So if we have some projects identified and, in a plan, we might be able to start going after some of that money to implement these as well. So, safety should be part of all of what we're doing at the planning level right now. So we'll definitely lean on that action plan and, the data we can pull from the resources we have from that. But we want to be responsive to the community needs as well. So I fully expect it to be a priority, but we'll see what we hear from the community. So. So maybe I can just, I'm not going to read through all the details on the different specific areas, but you can see the census tract in the South Santa Rosa area that we're going to be focusing on. It includes incorporated city and unincorporated areas. It's pretty heavily populated, over 10,000 people. Over 50% of the households have incomes of less than 200% of the federal poverty level. So a lot of lower income folks out there. 60% minority population. And, we've all been out there. It's a mix of housing and commercial areas. So there's a lot of diverse land use there, but it's really hard to get around if you're not in a car, right? So, there's a lot of need on improvements out there. Central Runner Park is in a lot of ways pretty similar. So it's really focused on Runner Park Expressway and State Farm Drive. There are 2 different census tracts that are involved here. Again, it's pretty heavily populated with over 10,000 people. About a third of the households are lower income, very large minority population as well. And again, there's a mix of uses here, but at the same time, it's hard to get around if you're not in a car.
Isn't minority kind of not the right word anymore?
I know.
You mean people who aren't
point.
white is what you mean?
Yeah.
Because I think they're no longer minority.
Yeah, I'll need to change my
Mhm.
vernacular, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for that. I
What's the
appreciate it.
definition of low income?
So low income is making 200% or less than the federal poverty level. Yeah. So we had to bump it up to 200% because the cost of living is so much higher in the Bay Area versus the rest of the country. So, yeah. So here's the rough process. We've already kicked the process off. We have a consultant on board that's helping us out with this. We'll be working with them and local staff to establish a stakeholder committee. So I'm sure a lot of you will be involved in this if you're interested. We'll be working with them to develop a community outreach strategy. So what types of events and places we should go to work with people. But the main goal is to really, number one, identify transportation gaps and barriers, and then work with the community to come up with that list of prioritized solutions. So here's what we're looking at doing, having that list of projects, identifying potential funding sources, looking at access issues and barriers, and having a final report and summary. So it's always nice to have a report and summary, but that project list is, I think the most important piece of this that we can use to go after funding to implement projects, right? These are the types of outreach or engagement activities we'll be engaged in. We'll be having community meetings, and going to public hearings and have a website and collecting comments on reports and documents, but we also want to get out into the community and just talk to people on the street. Since these are, you reach different groups of people by engaging in different ways. So we just wanted to let you know that this is going on. We'll be working on this through the end of next year. So I'll be able to bring back updates as we make progress, but we're just kicking off right now. We have the consultant on board. We're starting our, regular meetings with local staff and getting the stakeholder groups together. So
Who's the consultant?
Darren Pierce. Yeah. So, be happy to take any additional questions.
Tom's got one.
What are you've got a list of equity priority communities. I see just the two you talked about today. When will the others be addressed?
So, we hope to continue to get regional funding to look at additional areas. Some of those older plans are pretty old too. So as we get more funding, we'd like to revisit those as well and refresh them. But if you look at the map, we've looked at a lot of areas in the county. We haven't looked in some areas in Northwest Santa Rosa or the area around the fairgrounds. So there are other areas we haven't had a chance to look at yet. And then, the Roseland plan is almost 15 years old now. So, it'd be
What
good
percentage got done? Things that were in the plans.
I can't say off the top of my head. Dana, do you have a sense? Or...
Don't remember the percentage, but we do have it all documented.
Tim first.
Thank you.
Steve.
Thank you for presenting this. I like it. But the comment I have is when we do the public input sessions, which notoriously draw crowds like this, one thing I've noticed is we don't do a good job of actually going out and like to these spots that, to use another phrase, suck, and actually watching people and talking to them. When Windsor did a plan, we had a wonderful bus survey for bus riders. We put it online, and we didn't do a single survey on the buses or the bus stops. So what I would ask, what I'd really like to see is like where people use these products or don't use them, collect the information, even like this bus stop is terrible, scan this QR code to tell us how crappy it is. So that in English and Spanish, right? So people can do that because it's the quick thing I always say, the 4 steps is like observe where people struggle, ask the question, what's the next smallest thing we could do to address that struggle? Do that, and then repeat. And I think we're on the right path here, but if I see one more PDF, it's like 500 pages long with 14-year-old data, right? So, but thank you for this.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And, we really don't want to, another long plan that's going to sit on our website. That project list is going to be really important. And, I really like the idea of, telling us, tell us what's wrong, right? And, one benefit to the team that's going to be looking specifically at the the Santa Rosa Avenue corridor is we have Latino service providers as part of the consultant team. That'll really help us meet, get out in the community and talk to people where they're at, right?
Yeah. Steve and then Carol. Did you have a quick comment?
Do you hear anybody talking about the Air Resources Board's goal of a 25% reduction in VMT?
Not in relation to this project specifically, I think, that goal is very important. And, we really do need to aspire to meeting that, but, in these areas specifically, people are just struggling to live their lives and survive, right? So, I wouldn't expect a lot of people to know about that goal number one, and it may not be a higher priority, right? Feeding your family and getting to work, getting your kids to school, in our previous community-based transportation planning efforts, those were the types of priorities that we saw. So, yeah, but, I appreciate that, and we'll definitely keep working on that.
Yeah, the fact that suddenly, for me anyway, 4th Street was 2 lanes instead of 4 with bike lanes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on there that it's gonna be sudden. I'm just curious if that plays a role in any of that.
Yeah. We're also working on our comprehensive transportation plan right now. So, emissions reductions and considering that goal will be a larger focus of that planning effort. As I presented, the focus here is really to identify, critical improvements for people's daily transportation needs. So, yeah, if emissions and that goal comes up, we'll definitely report on it. So, we'll track that. Thanks.
Carol?
Yeah, I live in Sonoma Valley. Would there be a way for me to see, if I read the report, would I see where any impacts that it had or compare it with things that are going on now?
So we do have a link to that Sonoma Valley plan on our website, so you can access that and read it. And then you could go, compare that plan with our last comprehensive transportation plan. In the appendix, there's a list that goes through the progress that's been made on those projects.
Okay.
So I'd recommend doing that, and please reach out if you're having trouble navigating. all this.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Carol. There's.
Be really short, to not keep harping, but I am going to, on the question about what things have been done when these things happened before, is people are going to ask you that, right? Because if people who don't trust government, oh, here, come tell us what you want, and then nothing freaking changes, why should they want to talk to you?
Yeah.
Right? So you need to know those, and if they haven't been being done, then that's a problem.
So, I think one success story specifically from the Roseland or community-based transportation plan was, it used to be known as Route 19. I forget what the route number 2, that, that's the Santa Rosa City Bus service that serves Roseland directly. That was identified in that plan, and it was partially funded through the funding associated with that plan. So, I think even though we don't know the percentages right off the top of our head, which we can look into and maybe have that ready to go, I think having some of those success stories will be helpful too. That's a big win, right? Like being able to fund a major project like that. But yeah, I appreciate that. That's important.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
All right, we are on to financial statements. Oh, I'm sorry, we got to do minutes. Let's go back up, track back up to the approval of the July 29th meeting minutes. Rick, I'm assuming you have had ample time to review this when we get into discussion. So we'll get a motion in a second and get into discussion here.
Mr. Chair, that we adopt the minutes.
Is there a
Second.
second to that? All right. And we're in discussion. Any corrections, Jerry?
Yeah, on page 8, I asked a question about,
Jerry, could you use a mic? Because it's really hard to hear you through the mask.
yeah, sorry.
Thank
this-
you.
I had COVID 2 weeks ago and I'm wearing this for you guys just in case. So I asked the question about the reauthorization for funding for SMART. And on page 8, it says the SMART sales tax will expire in 2029. If the sales tax is not reauthorized, service will stop. Would service really stop if we don't reauthorize?
Yes.
Is that right?
Totally dependent on the sales tax.
If we stopped funding freeways, we couldn't drive them anymore.
The fair, as I understand, the fare box collections aren't even close to covering the routes. So
So there's no other source of funding besides that reauthorization?
not that I'm aware of. There's no grant funding or anything else that because the Go Sonoma Act has no more contribution to that. Did I say that correctly, guys? Everybody?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. The majority of Smart's operating funds is from their sales tax. I think about 80 to 90% of the funds for their operating revenue comes from their sales tax. There's only a small amount of state and federal funding that we receive for preventive maintenance and other things that could not sustain the general operations of the corridor. So Smart has looked at this and has come up with a plan to wind down service if the sales tax is not renewed, but as previously mentioned, they are looking at probably trying to pass the sales tax renewal in 2028.
I'm gonna suppose that some of their funding that they have landed for a future expansion could, in an emergency, be diverted, or could it be? It could not.
Unfortunately not, Mr. Chair. The funding they received for their expansions to Healdsburg has been capital funds and cannot be used for operating. They may be also looking at
Touch it.
going on the 2026 ballot for renewal, but that may conflict with a potential regional sales tax that MTC is considering. I should note that if the SMART sales tax is not renewed and the regional measure does end up getting passed, there may be an opportunity to fund SMART operations through that regional sales tax measure, since that would be really the one operator in the entire Bay Area that has a critical funding shortfall. There's a lot of discussion of the operating shortfalls that BART and AC Transit and Muni have, or VTA, all the large operators, but SMART is really the one operator that if they don't get a sales tax passed in the next 4 years, they will be shutting down operations entirely.
Thank you. Tom had a comment.
And just, there is a bill Dodd has introduced into the legislature, SB 904, which would would allow a citizens initiative. No, this is a specific piece of legislation that is specific to SMART. And it's interesting because while it would allow SMART to go out to the voters if they partnered with a citizens initiative, that would reduce the threshold, even regardless of whether Prop 5 passes, I believe.
Okay.
And however, one of the things I've noticed is that it also, there's a clause in it that would also allow, it would remove the prohibition on stations, commuter stations north of Windsor, which is essentially a breach of the existing urban growth boundaries north of Windsor. It would allow commuter stations to be placed elsewhere along the railroad track, which strikes me as a pretty good if you're a developer owning land up there, but not so good if you're trying to get the measure passed and the opponents would attack that particular piece of the measure. So I wanted people to be aware of that. And I sent Steve a note about it this afternoon. He probably hasn't had a chance to look at it yet, but it strikes me as a risky gamble that we don't want to miss this 28 reauth with a silly thing that will be shot down by voters.
Good point.
Mr. Chair, if I can clarify, that existing prohibition in the SMART authorization was passed originally because there was opposition in the community of Geyserville to having a smart station in Geyserville. That opposition has now gone away, and the community is very supportive of having a station in Geyserville. There's existing park and ride lot next to the tracks, and that is a location where SMART would have to double track to allow passing anyways, so trains will have to slow down. So SMART and the unincorporated community of Geyser were very interested in having a station there. That is what that language in the bill is about.
Makes sense. Thank you. Jerry, are you satisfied? The minutes are okay as any other corrections or comments to the minutes? We'll call for the questions. All those in favor of the minutes as presented?
Aye.
Any opposition? And no abstentions. One abstention. Two abstentions. All right. Thank you. And financials with Brenton. And all over the board today. Hi, Brenton. How you doing?
Good, thank you. Been
Good.
sitting in a hard plastic chair for a while.
Yeah.
Ready to move up here to the nice chairs? All right. Let's see. Oh, Drew, do you have the? Yes. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Okay, so these are the Measure M financials, but they're not for the trailing month. This is for the end of the fiscal year, ending June 30th.
Okay.
So it's August now. So this is a month later than usual because we had to wait through the end of the fiscal year to get these numbers. So the packet for financials this month includes the normal material with the change of balance sheets through the end of the fiscal year, cash flow reports, both for year to date and for program to date. This is all the standard material. There are a couple of other items that I'll get to after I go over the PowerPoint that are included this month. Revenues for the month of June were almost 8.8 million, a little under, and the year-to-date revenues for Measure M were just over $34 million. And the expenses were 4.26 million in June, with total year-to-date expenses of 21.7 million. And the cash balance is just over $70 million. For the revenues, the vast majority, 7.35 were sales and use taxes, 295,000 in federal pass-through dollars for the Safe Route to School program, $300,000 in state reimbursements, and then 855,000 in interest earnings. So interest is looking, it's coming up. Here are the year-over-year numbers for the finances. 2.448 million of taxes received in June, which is down just a tiny bit from the prior year. I did rename the second line here from year to date. I think it was collected, but I've changed it to year to date earned, which I think makes a little bit more sense. That shows these are the dollars that are actually applicable to the year 23-24. So the July through, I think it was April for was this month's earnings because they trail by 2 months. And then year to date received are the actual cash payments that we have received throughout the fiscal year. And so as you see, they're both down about 1.5%. The expenses in June, the majority were contributions to other governments, 3.7 million almost. Those are mostly the local streets and roads and local bus transit contributions. There were almost $82,000 in staff time and 212,000 in consultant services. Okay, that's the last slide. I'll just go over quickly the other materials that were provided this month. We got the first quarter HDL. These are our tax service providers. This is their newsletter that covers January through March of the year. They will be providing us with the forecast that we'll provide with the final budget in October, and that'll be the 3-year sales tax forecast. So we'll be getting a new one of those that's provided in October. And then lastly, the extra item is the sales tax revenue slide. It's like this. And that shows the estimated audited revenues. So those are, that number there, the 31,648,000 in the bottom of the middle column. That's what we have seen from the Department of Tax and Fee Administration. So that should be our revenues for the entire year. We just haven't received the final two payments yet. And so as you can see, that's down 1.83% from fiscal year 22-23.
Question on interest earned. It seems that's low in my guesstimation. You're showing 850, previous line 854,000 and change on a 70,327,000 cash balance.
It's only for the month.
So it's divided by, okay, so it's divided by 12. So
Yeah.
Oh, so you're making, that's decent then, because it was 1.21%.
That could be pretty good. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm
so
not
you're
sure what
making-
we're receiving from the treasury pool right now.
Yeah.
But yes, that's just the months.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Yes.
One of the things that I was looking at, in growth in 2022 to 23, but that growth is it's not subtracted from CPI, is it? So CPI actually was 3.2 during the same period. So
Which I'm sorry, there was an update to this that was sent out. So I'm not sure which one you're looking at. In 22-23, the growth should be 1.2%. Is that the one you're looking at?
I'm looking at one that says 2.5.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, that's the,
But regardless, that's all. So we're way behind on growth as far as from relative to CPI.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, these are just,
Do we know
these are raw
why?
dollars. Yeah.
Do we know why?
That would be a question for HGL. I think take a look at the list. It shows how the different industries are doing in that newsletter.
Okay.
But I can't make a guess on that. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, that's it for my presentation.
I just want to add one thing, and that's kind of to compliment SCTA and their staff on projections, and not to drag the city of Santa Rosa through any more mud than they have been dragged through for their business license tax proposal. But when we met with them, they were very surprised in the first quarter, second quarter of 2024, because their projections were so far off. So all of a sudden they're in a crisis mode. I just got to compliment you guys, and I used you guys as an example. You guys don't seem to ever put us into a crisis mode. Your projections are pretty spot on, even though we weathered a pandemic and a recession and so forth. Way to go. Good job, you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah,
Why don't you give them a call, the finance department, talk to Alan and straighten them out a little.
Maybe they need to talk to HGL.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh, I just have I'm not exactly sure what vouchers are, but I was wondering, the vouchers payable, does that have an expiration date? Do vouchers expire?
I'm sorry, I don't know which worksheet you're
Oh,
talking.
I'm sorry, I'm looking, I'm sorry. This is a random question I could ask you at another time. The balance sheet, starting with the funds 74651.
Vouchers payable.
Yeah, and so it goes down to vouchers payable, which is in the bottom third of the page. And I'm not sure what vouchers are. I'm assuming that's rides paid for in advance.
I don't have that one
Yeah.
with me right
No, I
now,
mean,
but no, I don't think it would expire.
Oh, okay.
It's just payments made. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Jerry? Yeah.
Question. Was there an update to the handout from the first time you sent it out? Because I don't have the HDL report included in it's when I download it.
Oh.
It's after the.
It's in this print one.
No, I looked through the whole thing.
It's in this print one.
The one that was in the link in the Outlook is
Yeah.
the most up-to-date one as well. Not the file that was attached, but the one
Okay.
that's in the link appeared to be the most up-to-date.
And I also just want to note on this section specifically on the printed agenda, I don't print all 20-30 pages of the numbers. Just want you to know that if you want all of those, please let me know and I'll be more than happy. But I please see if it is up here that I'm going to throw away at the end of this meeting. So that's why I don't print all those files. It's fine. So
Sure.
just to be clear with everyone.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Brendan. Brendan.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, you're up.
All right, I just would like to provide a very quick introduction to Christina Ponza, who's
Okay.
gonna
Thank you.
present on the Safe Routes to School program.
Cool.
I believe I talked about this last year when Christina presented to this committee. But I wanted to just remind everyone that the program has not actually used any Measure M funds this last year, fiscal year, or the previous. It's been funded for the most part by the One Bay Area Grant Program. The reason we haven't used Measure M funds is that we actually advanced them several years ago when there was a gap in the federal funding, so that we could continue the program. We do anticipate that, you know, there may be some Go Sonoma Act funds going toward this program in the future, and we want to keep the consistency with presentations to this committee. So I just want to make that note, and with that, I'll pass it off to Christina.
Thank you so much, Dana. Do you want me to share my screen so that I can do it from PowerPoint instead of your PDF, or?
If that's easier for you, Christina.
What?
If that's easier for you.
I think so. Then I could advance the slides myself. So let's just do that. Thank you so much, Dana, for the intro, and thanks everybody for having me today. Obviously I'm presenting on Safe Routes to School. I just want to do a quick time check though. I don't know if the meeting has a hard stop at 5:30 or if, you know, people can stay longer, because I want to just modify.
There's a few people that have a hard stop at 5:30, but there's hardcore members here that'll stick it out.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll try. I'm probably I'll just skip through some slides. So the next slide, I'm just going to skip through, but you can review it later. It just talks about all the benefits of Safe Routes to School. This slide is the funding through OBAG so far. So we started the program. We're in the 6th year of a 9-year contract. And as of June 2024, we utilized 60.22% of the funds available. And so we're tracking really well on the program funding wise with OBAG right now. But I also wanted to share a slide. These are just to give a glimpse, a snapshot of our expenditures in 1 year of the county program as a whole. So our program, what I'm about to talk about, is funded through OBAG, but we also get other sources of funding which are not guaranteed on a yearly basis. This past year, we got funding from the town of Windsor. From the town of Sonoma, actually rolled over from the year before. We got a grant through Outride. We got a grant through MTC, and then some other family bicycling funding that came through donations and things like that of a couple $1,000s. So the actual cost of the program in 1 year, it was about close to $445,000. And costs will continue to increase each year based on rising expenses and increased demand. We've had a lot of demand for the program. So we are definitely looking to continue to, supplement that OBAG funding through other sources. These are our program components. Again, I'm not going to read through this slide. I'm going to pass through and talk about the components, but, go back to it and just, you'll see a list of everything that we provide on this slide. And this slide here is really like a timeline of what the program looks like. We are a year-round program, even though we're serving schools. We are, we're either actually in schools doing walk roll events or doing education, or we're coordinating that or planning for it, or we're planning for evaluation or tallies. We're doing community education year-round. So our program really is a year-round program. It's not just a school year program. Every school, one of the components of our program is evaluation, and we evaluate schools in a few different ways. One way is that we assess where students live in relation to the school to kind of see what the potential is for walking and biking. And this is a map of McDowell Elementary that we did last year. McDowell's in Petaluma, and it's not in the safest location. There are quite a few kids within a mile. About 50% of the families live within a mile, and 29% live within a half a mile. 15% live within a quarter mile of the school. 81% live within 2 miles of the school. This is as the crow flies, but the walking and biking at McDowell is like 10 to 13% are walking and biking right now, and that's really because of the infrastructure, they're on McDowell Boulevard, like what could we do to, so we look at this data to kind of see like, oh, what is the difference between the number of kids that live within a quarter or a half mile of a school and the number of kids who are walking and biking, and why is that gap there? And are there things we can do with programming or with infrastructure that would help, close that gap? Another thing that we've been doing since last year, again, more methodically, we've done this on and off throughout the years with different sources of funding. But in the past year, we formed task forces in both the city of Santa Rosa and the city of Petaluma. We started with those two cities because we had really engaged partnerships with the local public works and planning departments in those two cities. And we've started methodically auditing schools for barriers to walking and bicycling. And so we audited, I think 10 schools in Petaluma and Santa Rosa last year, and 8 schools in Petaluma, or 7. And when we do an audit, we have the school personnel and safe routes and city planners and police department and other community partners, and we observe pick up or drop off, and we do a walk around the school, and we talk about what the barriers are, and we write up a report, we document that, and then we work with Public Works to continue to follow and track what improvements can be made. And it's pretty cool, and a lot of this data is accessible to anyone in the public. We have a page on our website called Safe Routes to School Travel Plan. So all that data I just shared, the GIS maps, the tally data, the walk audit reports, if there is a report, is on our website under the school travel plans page, which is under events and plans. You can go to school travel plans. There's a list of all the schools in the program, and you can see their travel plan, and any data about that school that we have gathered is accessible to any of you anytime. It's really cool. I don't have time to go into all of that, but it's really useful information to, not just you, but to any public works professional or anyone applying for funding, or our school districts or our schools themselves to even know what data is up there. So going to encouragement, we have encouragement programming that we do. We work with our schools to encourage kids to walk and bike, and we provide them with materials and incentives and things like that to promote walking and bicycling to school. So we do themes every single month. And this is our year plan, September through May. We have 59 schools enrolled in the program this year. It's the highest number we've had so far. These are 59 schools that are doing encouragement monthly, that are promoting challenges and doing things to get more kids to walk and bike. And this is just an example of promotional materials that we share. We have one of our first big events of the year is International Walk and Roll to School Day, which is October 9th. And that's celebrated all over the world on that day. And we send posters out to the schools, and we give them collateral, like little Instagram images. That's the yellow, and this poster is for October. And in September, we have a challenge called the Back to School Map and Meetup Challenge. So that's just some of the collateral that we send and we create for our schools to help them market basically walking and biking to school. It's really kind of a marketing campaign for every month. This is just an example of our challenge. One of our challenges in September, we're challenging kids and families to map their route to school and meet up with others for fun and connection and safety in numbers. So again, it's about promoting these ideas, supporting schools and messaging to their families. And so we have something like this every month. In October, we have a challenge, which is about getting more kids to walk and bike as often as they can. And they can fill out the challenge sheet and tell us how many days they walked and biked, and turn this in and get a prize, or be entered into a drawing for a prize. So we have one of these every month, but those are just our first 2 months of this coming year. Just looking back at last year, since I last presented to the CAC in January, we do an art contest every February. This is just some examples of the art that came in last February, that was in, and we produce a calendar of the winning art, and they're just so beautiful, like all the art that we get from kids. It's great, and we can utilize it to continue to promote the program and to to thank our schools for engaging. Bike to School Day also was this, I'm going back to last year since you didn't hear about how it went. This last May, we had Bike to School Day on May 8th. We had 57 participating schools, 1,452 student bicyclists. That was 150% increase over the norm. So we get the schools to count their bikes on a normal day and count their bikes on Bike to School Day. And 150% increase countywide. Petaluma had a 230% increase in bicyclists from 147 to 485 kids that biked. And this is a picture of one of the bike trains that happened in Petaluma. We had a lot of great organization there. And I think part of that came out of our task force there in Petaluma that Bjorn was a big part of helping me with, and some other community partners. So good job, Petaluma, but other cities too did a great job. And we've done a lot of work countywide this past year to support schools informing bike trains, not just on Bike to School Day, but on other days. We actually have a page on our website now that has all kinds of materials that schools can use to support doing a bike train, like our bike train guide. And we have a bike train video on how to lead a bike train and sample flyers. And this is a sample flyer that we created. We had on Bike to School Day, we had 26 schools that formed bike trains and 34 bike train routes, which was our highest number ever. So that was awesome. We're still working on that. And then we were in schools doing education. We had 42 sites last year where we did 2nd to 8th grade. Sorry, that still scheduling is not correct. That's from last year. Those are last year's numbers. But we really did have 42 plus sites that we went into the classroom and taught pedestrian or bike safety education. And then we did our 4th grade bike rodeos, which are during the school day on bike, where kids get helmets and get their bikes repaired and get training on bikes. And we were at 36 sites last year. Again, every year we've had more schools. We're pretty much at capacity now. I don't know if next year we're going to have more schools unless we have more funding, but we have increased every year for quite a while. And same with middle school. We were at 13 sites last year doing middle school on bike education. And we were also out in the community. We have learn to ride lessons. We do them about once a month in Petaluma, Santa Rosa, and Windsor between August and November, and then between March and June. So we are teaching many kids to learn how to bike. I don't have that total number from last year, but it was hundreds. And then we also we're still doing our family bike workshops and our rides, family rides, this in 2024. This is what we did and will do. So we had a Sebastopol family bike workshop in April, a district family ride in April. In Petaluma, we had a workshop, Windsor in August. Santa Rosa, we have one coming up. That date is actually the 14th, sorry, not the 24th, that's wrong. And we have one coming up in October as well, and also a district family ride as well in October. And we had, again, the 3rd year of our Kids Bike Adventure Camp was in June 10th to 14th. We had 15 kids aged 8 to 12. We spent a whole week with these kids, 6 hours or 5 or 6 hours a day. They get deep on bike education and rides. They go riding all over the county. Dana's daughter was in this group this year. And actually, if you watch our bike train, how to lead a bike train video, that video footage was taken at bike camp, and it was just really amazing, wonderful. And the kids that are in camp really, they become like bike ambassadors. So we're really proud of that program, and it's filled up the last 2 years. So we're excited about that. We continue to partner with bike shops and the Bay Area Bike Mobile. We repaired 786 bikes at 4th grade bike rodeos and 127 bikes at middle schools. We partnered with 6 local bike shops to do that, plus a partnership with the Bay Area Bike Mobile, who actually kind of lost most of their funding. So they were only at like 3 schools last year, but we're hoping they come back and do more schools because they'll do like after school bike repair workshops and serve just anybody. And it's really cool. And we did outreach and engagement. We were at school events, PTA, PFO presentations, school staff meetings, community meetings, task forces. We do walk roll day support, bike train support. we reached about 23, almost 2,400 people in 23-24 through those community outreach engagements. And then in terms of education, again, highest number yet. We had 8,500 students received education in 23-24 in our classroom or on bike education. This is the breakdown per grade level that you can review. Yeah, so it's I think last year it was about 7,000 students. So we have increased exponentially every year. We just have higher and higher demand for the program from schools every year. And this is just my final slide, reminding you that our website is sonomasaferoutes.org. Our website really is a toolkit for school partners to use. If you go up there, you can find all the challenge materials, all the walk and roll day materials. You can go see our PSAs that we share on bike education videos and our bike train page, and the school travel plans, and pretty much everything about the Safe Routes program that we do can be found on that website. And if anyone is curious about it or wants me to help them navigate it one day, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. All right, I'm going to stop.
Good job, Christina. Thank you very much.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions or comments?
I've got one quick one, and that is probably something that's really hard to track. I mean, it's a safe schools program and so forth. The ridership is up, but the participation and the outreach is up. It'd be nice to know how effective some of the measures and the education and training are. What were the incidents in 2023? What were the incidents in 2024? What were the most effective things that
I wish that was an easy number to get.
Not
It's,
easy.
there's so many.
Just
there's
saying
so
that's something
many-
I'd like to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to see that too. I would love to see, like, if, you know, the fourth graders who receive our bike rodeos are less likely to get into a crash than one that didn't. I think it's just there's not enough. Well, thank God there's not enough crashes.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
No.
Zero's a good number.
Yeah, but I mean, a few years back, under a different contract that we had, we went through a whole contract under the health services where we did a lot of process evaluation, where we did like before and after surveys with like kids that received education and like what they learned in the class, like they had to do pre and post tests, and we interviewed teachers, and we did a lot of that kind of work under that contract, and found that kids were learning, like kids were, we did see results in the pre and post tests. And we do surveys in all our family bike workshops and ask parents, like, are they more willing to ride? So we have data, but it's not the data that you're looking.
That's fine. Yeah. Thank you. Rick has a quick comment, I think.
Yeah, thank you, John. I just wanted to say that I'm very impressed with the creative ways you've come up with to interest kids in learning about bicycling. And I think this is doubly important, really, because first of all, you get them riding now when they're going to school. But the maxim is that, what you teach children sticks with them all their lives. So these are kids that I would hope 10, 20, 30 years from now are still going to be interested in riding bicycles. So I think this is a great program.
Thank you so much. And we definitely see that, like, when with the fourth graders, we have, a lot of schools have like asked kids, like, what was the thing that you loved the most this year at school? What was the program? And so many fourth graders point to the bike rodeo as like their favorite thing. And I just feel like it's such a joyous thing to get kids on bikes during the school day. And we're reaching every fourth grader. So it's not just like a weekend thing where only the kids whose parents can take them are part of it. So I think that's I really am proud of that program for that reason.
Well, thank you very much. Great presentation as usual.
Thank you very much.
All right. Anything else for the good of the game, anybody?
I have some new bumper stickers if anybody wants one.
Cool.
This is my favorite one to have on my car. This one is going on my bike.
So I
All
have a
right.
quick question, actually.
Yeah,
before- in Sonoma, I'm trying to get a trolley going, a loop that'll go around. Right now, just within the town limits, if I can get another one that can go beyond. I know Santa Rosa's got one of these. I'm looking for any kind of guidance and help, because I did a trolley run on my own. I hired the wine trolley. We did it just to do a proof of concept, but would really like any assistance if people know about it, so I can do a trial this year and then figure out money for next year.
Our trolley historian has a comment, I think.
Jake from Hunter Park, let's hear it.
Was interested to hear about the progress with safe routes on bicycles. However, the more dangerous vehicles that are two-wheeled and around certainly the city of Roanoke Park at nighttime are electric scooters and electric bicycles, and particularly electric scooters. And I don't know if anybody has thought, I know from a regulatory point of view, as far as Roanoke Park public safety is concerned, they're very difficult to regulate. So that it's just something that bothers me as a nighttime driver around the city of Roanoke Park.
Well, and isn't Santa Rosa about to embark on their own electric scooter program where you can go down and hop on one and go
Well, they
bar
had
hop?
one for a while and it's gone
Yeah,
now.
but they're bringing back e-bikes at this much.
E-bikes, right?
Oh, you mean the bikes? Yeah, those
Smart
are.
Oh, I thought they were doing the scooter rental thing, reenacting it and so
The
forth.
company kind of went bankrupt, man.
Oh, what a shame.
Anyway. They were fun.
Yeah,
I had an
absolutely.
announcement.
Yeah, go ahead.
Plan Bay Area 2050 Plus is out for public comment right now. And that is essentially Plan Bay Area downscaled for the lack of there being state budget to do what we wanted to do under Plan Bay Area 2050. The other thing that's out there is an amendment that was filed to the plan, which would allow funding, would allow MTC to override what I think was staff's original analysis, because north of Windsor does not perform well on traditional MTC scoring, because there's not so many riders north of Windsor in theory. So that's all out for comment right now, and people are encouraged to read through it and learn more.
I have a comment on that as well. One of the things I was disappointed about with this is that Planet Bay Area 2050 Plus basically looks at what's our inertia been, and says, here's the inertia, and that's what they plan for, as opposed to a conscious plan that says we'd like to grow in these areas. To that end, it basically scores in our area severely reduced employment, severely reduced increase in population. And it takes a place like Santa Clara County and shows it with tremendous amount of job growth, tremendous amount of population growth. And from what do we want to happen in the Bay Area, it doesn't make any sense to me. So I've been very vocal in the meetings that I've been in saying, why are we planning something? You're just documenting what you think is happening as a result of what's happened in the past. Let's figure out what we want to do instead.
All right, with that, we're adjourned.
You can always talk to your MTC commissioners.